Welcome to r/entitled people, where we share stories from your lives about people who think the rules don't apply to them and they should get what they want. Thank you, friends, for subscribing to the channel and for so many likes. And today we have 3 great stories, so subscribe, hit the like button, and let's begin. The first story: server uncovers a labyrinth of gender-biased double standards and toxic workplace culture within an exclusive NYC private members club. The second story: table tug-of-war, confronting Karen over a stolen seat at a restaurant. The third story: escaping the micromanagement abyss, surviving the chaos of a troubled job. The first story is fired over a macaroni. I'm reaching out with some thoughts as I was just fired from one of NYC's most exclusive private members clubs, and the whole situation just seems very unfair. I'll start off by saying that I've never received any type of warning or write-up during my last year of working for the company. I take my job very seriously and have been an asset to the team. I am 32 female, and I've been in this industry my whole life. I've worked with some of the best in Manhattan restaurants and cocktail bars over the last decade. I'm always early. I show up 30 to 45 minutes before my shift to make sure I have time to change after my commute, so I can be professional and ready on the floor. I've only been late maybe 2 to 3 times, and I always over-communicate with management if I'm in that situation. I'm a team player. Ask any of the staff there and they will tell you I'm always ready to lend a hand. If I have a free moment, you can find me tidying up service areas, running drinks, or asking other servers if they need assistance. I get great scores on all my food and beverage tests. I don't look at my phone during service and I'm always at attention. Our members love me. I am personable, always smiling, and I remember their names and drink orders. Getting to this past Friday night, I was sectioned in a particularly large lounge without a dedicated busser. Every other section has a server in their own busser. It was slow back there until close to 8:30 or 9, when the whole club and restaurant were full. I got 6 tables at one time, and it was a bit of a scramble to get to everyone, but I was trying my hardest to make it happen. A party of 2 gentlemen ordered food immediately upon sitting down, before I was able to get their drinks. I took the order quickly, and gentleman 1 asked me if what we had ordered, minestrone soup and Wagyu steak, was gluten-free. I was moving too fast and made a mistake in telling him yes. I didn't think about the macaroni in the soup. This is admittedly my error. However, he did not in fact mention an allergy. I had many tables all at once and I had no support. The rest of the club was grooving and they couldn't lend a hand. So I'm attempting to get waters, drink orders, and setups for all these tables on my own, multitasking as best as I could manage alone. Gentleman 1 received the minestrone and took a bite before realizing there was pasta. He told me then that gluten would make him sick the next day. I acknowledged my mistake and profusely apologized. I bussed the still full soup back to dish and went straight to the manager and told her what happened. She advised me to apologize, split the soup off of the check, and send a complimentary appetizer. So that's exactly what I did. I'm also a decent human being and felt really bad about the mistake I had made. I apologized again and spent time at the table, talking to the 2 gentlemen. He still didn't mention anything about an allergy. He had taken a bite and then he mentioned it might upset his stomach, but he was laughing and making jokes about it with me. It seemed we had good rapport and he enjoyed the rest of his meal. He stayed late until closing at the bar with his friends. The following day, Saturday 4/1, they allowed me to pick up a shift from another server. They allowed me to work the entire shift until after 12 a.m., before sitting me down and firing me on site. The manager never gave me a chance to tell my side of what happened. I never got a word in. The GM talked over me the whole time and said it was an immediate termination. Even though I have a squeaky clean record with the company, I fully expected to be written up for my mistake. The manager who had told me to send the app was written up for the same incident. I know that the guest didn't get sick because my managers didn't even know who it was. They had to ask me which member it was the next day and I told them his name. If he had gotten sick and complained, they would have known his name. Herein lies the major issue of injustice. I know for a fact that 2 other servers have made an allergy mistake in the past. 2 male servers, both who nearly killed someone because of a severe nut allergy that they didn't communicate to the kitchen. On one incident, the guest left on a stretcher, and those male servers, they got write-ups. They didn't get fired. The troll of a woman who's the director of operations has even joked about it at a pre-shift meeting before, making fun of the server who nearly killed someone and using him as an example in the meeting. One of them actually still works there and he's one of the captains. They make more money from the tip pool as appointed server leaders. A few of the other captains, all male of course, get drunk every shift. And I mean every shift. They ring in extra cocktails and they bust them to dish to chug. The boys get a pass because they're indoctrinated with the troll from a different private club. She brought them all with her to open this place a couple years ago. She has her boys club, and she lets them do whatever they want. They make more money than the rest of us, and they're supposed to be leaders among the servers. But they don't pull their weight. The double standard is wildly obvious and gross. I don't want my job back. The culture behind the scenes here is incredibly toxic, so I'm all set. It's a blessing in disguise for me. Truly happy to be done with the torture and anxiety of working there. I just wanted to shed a little light on how even some of the best places are actually being run. I know that the troll is texted with another server and is spreading a false narrative that I suggested that Soup to Gentleman 1. This could not be further from the truth, and is extremely unprofessional to be texting about with a tipped employee. She doesn't think we talk? As I explained, I was juggling about 3 orders, 4 setups, and 2 people flagging me down, and I sure as heck didn't have time to suggest things from the menu at that time. I could hardly get all 30 of my guests water in a timely fashion. I was not given support on the floor and I was set up for failure. So to be spreading lies that I recommended that dish really doesn't sit well with me. It's not what happened. The thing that really makes that membership club excellent is the staff. The troll is a bully and she's gonna run any good people out of there eventually. Employees are looking for other opportunities because the money we make isn't nearly enough to make up for the way they're treated and talked down to. Did I get to see and talk to celebrities all the time? Yes. Did it make up for having to take our break in a dirty back stairwell because there's no employee bathroom or break room? No. Update. I'm getting my state insurance license and getting the F out of this hellish industry. Yeehaw! The second story is Karen Encounter Story. Well, it finally happened to me. I'm not certain this is more of an entitled, selfish, or just a run-of-the-mill Karen story, but here goes. A few weeks ago, I, 39 male, was on a work trip and went to a restaurant to get a meal at a casual-type local place. Since I had a few hours to kill, I decided to dine in rather than get takeout. It was early afternoon, and the place was around 60% full. The hostess seated me at a 2-top. Before I even sat down, I asked her for directions to the restroom so I could wash my hands before eating. I left my ball cap and hat on top of the menu on the table, mainly so any server would know someone was seated. After the 2 minutes it took me to go wash my hands, I returned and found my table, and one of the 2 other chairs gone, my hat and menu included. I turned around to look for a server when I noticed that a nearby booth had a 2-top table with 1 chair pulled up to it. There were 5 people seated, and only 1 at the 2-top. On the floor a few feet away I noticed my hat. When I approached to pick up my hat, I asked the people sitting there if they had moved the table. A woman in the booth, let's go ahead and call her Karen, responded that a friend showed up so they needed a larger or additional table, and that this one wasn't being used. I responded that I had been seated there and was using it, and had left my hat on the table to indicate that while I washed my hands. She responded that there was no hat on the table. When I asked how my hat ended up on the floor, picking it up and pointing to it, next to her table, she said she never saw it. At this point I noticed a waiter, so I gestured for him to come over. I explained that this party moved my table over to their booth. I said I had no problem if they wanted to use one of the chairs for their additional guest, but that I would need the table. Karen cut me off at the end and said to me, not the waiter, that I should just find another table since they were already using it. I responded to the waiter that I was using it, which was why I had left my hat there while I washed my hands. At this point, the other woman who was sitting at my table started to get to, presumably to give me the table back, but Karen immediately said, "Don't you dare" to her, then stared at me and the waiter as if daring either of us to respond. The waiter started to say he was sure they could find her another table. She cut him off with a typical Karen response. "We're not giving up the table, and I need to speak to your manager." This is when I decided I really liked the waiter and would give him a nice tip. He responded that he wasn't going to waste his manager's time on a complaining Karen, and told her the options were to give me back the table or to go eat somewhere else. I'm not sure how, but it worked, except for the staring daggers, and muttered comments which I found amusing. She did not appreciate my periodic smirk or chuckle in response. Looking back, I maybe could have just moved, but I also assumed it was an innocent mistake until Karen opened her mouth and hit me with that patented attitude. The third story is, the fastest I quit story for me was my first job in collections. Wasn't as quick as it should have been. I went through one of these we hire anyone with a pulse and the ability to use a phone interviews. Go through training thinking, oh, this isn't so bad. I just talk people into paying their bills. Offer settlements if they're not wanting to pay. I was good at it. A week in and my training manager was talking about moving me to business credit accounts, one of the harder accounts to work on. Soon after being placed on a real desk of my own, I start to really understand why this place has high turnover. It's not the demanding amount of work or the rude customers. Those people were more comical than intimidating. It was the micromanaging CEO and his lackey floor managers. They did really insane morale boosters like forcing the entire floor to stand and deliver, or make as much noise as possible. Handed out clappers and noisemakers to celebrate collecting payments. I was always more of a work with my hands kind of person before this job, but recently was handicapped because of injury and had corrective surgery to allow my mobility to return, so a job at a desk was necessary for income. This made standing at random intervals difficult. I mentioned this the first week on the floor and my manager basically said, "I'm not going to tolerate your insubordinate attitude." This caught me way off guard because I was basically telling her I'm having difficulty with this physical demand and was asking she not yell at me for remaining seated some of the times. She scoffed and said without a doctor's note I'd be expected to stand like everyone else. Mind you, I was walking with the assistance of a cane. I guess she assumed for personal flair. The real red flags came with team meetings with the CEO, and I'd like to say it was just weird to claim that title for a company with like 50 employees. Like there was some board of shareholders he was accountable to, and a publicly traded company. No, it was him and 2 other executive-level managers, and 6 to 7 middle managers and 40 or so employees, taking phone calls. But he would huddle all his employees and give pep speeches once a day in the morning, to mostly gloat about how much money we were earning him and then sprinkle in off-color topics about his political views. I started looking for other places to work immediately, but a real fire was lit under my A to get out, when one day it's a slow morning, and a lot of people around me are blanking, no collected payments, myself included. We'd write down on a little laminated sheet every day what we collected, and this would be monitored by floor managers walking around and the CEO too. Well, the person right next to me was a 6-year vet at this company, probably had a longer tenure than most of the managers at this place, was blanking too. The CEO singles this guy out and tells him to hang up the call he's on. Mind you, he's halfway through collecting information and about to secure his first payment for the day, so he tells the CEO to hold on for a second. This egomaniac hated that the guy next to me would tell him anything except yes sir, proceeded to rip this dude's headset off his ears and threw it on the ground. I'm just a few feet away trying to focus on my own SH. He immediately notices people staring, so he calls an early lunch break. People leave, myself included, to come back and find out the employee who had just been chewed out for trying to do his job had already had his SH cleaned out and fired. I handed in my notice the next week after taking the Friday afternoon off to go to an interview with another firm. I had only been there a month with all this drama, but because I stayed in the industry, I learned a lot more about this company from other people, who were also smart enough to abandon ship. This guy had a lot of problems following the law when it came to collections, telling clients we were ACA accredited, but not paying for the tests or doing proper training to claim that, using auto dialers to harass consumers when he was a smaller firm, frivolous lawsuits against people who filed disputes with the credit bureaus. I hope you enjoyed these stories. Hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.